There we go.
Nice. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Vikings Report, live and uncensored on this Monday night, 7 p.m. With me are my usual partners in crime, Drew Bunting and Christopher Gates, the purveyor, founder, and writer emeritus of the Daily Norseman, dailynorseman.com. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
I'm not sure what you just called me, but I'll go ahead and accept it. I'm doing all right, folks. I'm happy to be back with you guys again, and we had a hell of a time on Thursday night, and now we're going to go over everything from the rest of the weekend too. So it should be a lot of fun for everybody.
I'm looking forward to it. Drewster, how about you, buddy?
Meow meow. Are we all good? Can everybody see us?
I think so.
I think we are. In there. Everything's going well. There's no
let's go.
Technical problems. How are you guys doing tonight?
If I was any better, I'd be against the law, amigo.
Oh, light this candle. Can we all start out? Can we all raise a toast and say, get them up there, boys?
I don't have a glass with me.
Oh, Ted, come on.
I'm sorry. No glass.
Okay. Chris,
I'll do it in spirit.
Do it in spirit. Wisconsin is on fire, dude.
It is. It's great.
Let's all raise, even you out there, if you're watching, raise them up there. Let's take a drink.
I'm doing a Steve Austin slamming two beer cans together and chugging them down
because they are having problems. And we're going to start our show out with Green Bay's dysfunction.
Because
they cut Jake Kumerow.
that was the breaking point. Jake Kumerow was the breaking point.
Yeah.
That would be like Kirk Cousins says, you know what? You just cut Chad Beebe. I want out.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah.
Okay, but we're not here to talk about the Packers. We're here to relish and enjoy the schadenfreude going on with the Packers, but we're not here to talk about the Packers.
No.
We had a great show Thursday night. I know we had some technical issues and we had to jump over to Facebook, and we just still had a tremendous turnout and feedback, and the comments were amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you are a YouTube regular and missed the show, I hope you caught. We got the replay up on our channel. And if you missed it, I want to go over the winners of all our prizes real quick. D. Gatz won a Minnesota Vikings flag, really nice. Ford Elliott won that Purple People Eaters plaque that Drew had shown on a couple episodes. For our draft pick game, Pete Withrow, my man Pete, running with the winning horse. That's right, baby. Had it all the way. I knew going in I was going to win. What you got, Drew?
With a row.
With a row.
Right now.
Yeah. I didn't mean to mispronounce your name. I have a friend of mine whose last name spelled the same way, pronounced Withrow. So
Pete's all good.
Pete made a culpa on that. Happy. So, anyways, he won a set of framed Minnesota Vikings cards that Drew made. Dr. Proto won a Minnesota Vikings sign. Dan Lee won two coffee mug set, and Mary Fisk won a Minnesota Vikings Hall of Fame coffee mug. Our jersey winner was Mr. Joshua Yee. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Our non-Vikings fan gift certificate winner was Mr. Ed Zeidler. Our Mary Fisk mystery prize winner was Justin Barkley. And on Friday, Friday, we had another giveaway. We might not have been on the air, but we were giving stuff away like we were the Salvation Army, man. We had another jersey contest. It was the Jared Allen jersey that we featured on our Jared Allen show, and that was won by his Twitter handle is Cyberrick, and I believe he's a longtime Daily Norseman commenter as well.
Yep, that's him.
Dude, we've been giving it away now. We've been doing good on the giveaways.
We're the red hot Viking peppers. I don't know.
All right, surprises, baby.
Yeah, and more of that to come down the future as we figure stuff out. Now, because we're going live tonight, we're not taping a show this week and recording it on Saturday, but Drew has put a lot of hard work and effort into what we like to call our greatest hit show. We've got clips of some of our funnier, better moments, and that's going to air Saturday at 10. So it won't be a new show, but it's something that Drew and Ruby and I have put a lot of work into. So mostly Drew and Ruby. I just threw a couple things in, and it's going to be great. You're going to enjoy it.
You're going to like it.
All right. All that's out of the way. Let's talk the draft. We'll start. Yeah, that's pretty terrible, man.
No, hold on, man. Time is a flat circle. Give me one more shot at it.
All right, go. No, that's not better.
That was better.
I'll give you.
That was better.
I'll give you a B+ on that one.
And we had the draft, you lunatics. What do you
All
think
right.
about the Vikings?
Drew, what are your overall thoughts on the draft in general, and talk about them? We're going to get in the Vikings. Just your overall thoughts about the draft in general.
The first thing that stands out most to me is that we didn't get into that trade back frenzy in the mid rounds.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's amazing. I don't know if somebody sat Spielman down or talked to him or threatened him, or I don't know what happened, but there was none of that going on. The only trade back he did was that absolute fantastic one in the first round when he traded back and still got Darisaw. That was a genius move. But that's what stood out to me most is we didn't spend a bunch of time trading back. We were actually selecting players.
Yeah.
And the next thing that stood out to me is overall, I think Zimmer went in this year thinking he sat everybody down at the table, all 132 assistant coaches or whatever he has. And he said, we're going back to basics. And this game is won and lost in the trenches because they took 5 linemen. So the trenches got a lot of attention, which I am very happy about. And I think they're trying to get back to the basics with that. And I think positionally, I think they hit all the positions. Maybe could have grabbed a safety somewhere, but A- on the grade of what they did positionally. I can't really grade overall because you know how I feel about that. You got to let time go by. But
yeah,
for as much as you can, you're kind of grading now for where you took guys in projected rounds. Yeah. And I think the Vikings did a great job. They got a lot of players that have a lot of upside, and they're just kind of iffy. They're guys that have really talented players, but they just need some experience, including Mond. But I like how they attacked it. I'm really happy with the draft so far.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of have a lot of the same thoughts as Drew did. You know, we're used to Rick Spielman, trading all over the board. This is the first draft of the Spielman era where they didn't make multiple trades during the draft. They only made the one, and it was a good one. And otherwise, they just let everything fall to them. I think we all kind of assumed that they were going to take some of those third-round picks that move up into the second round, and it just didn't happen because I guess the board was falling for them the way they wanted it. They got they got Mond and Wyatt Davis at the top of the third round or toward the top of the middle of the third round. And, I think it worked out really well for the Vikings. They didn't have to go crazy and trade and try to, pick up 15, 16 draft picks or anything like that because not that many guys are going to make the team out of this draft class anyway. So, no, I think things went relatively well for Minnesota. I really can't argue with the results they got this time.
You guys know how irritated I was when Chicago traded ahead of the Vikings and got Justin. I'm not going to belabor that. That and stuff came out over the weekend that I think looking back now in retrospect, even if the Vikings, there was some chatter on Twitter earlier today about, well, if the Vikings had lost that last game to Detroit, they'd have been higher up in the draft order, and they could have maybe gotten Fields. And I don't think that would have happened. I think they've only would have improved a spot or two, and the Bears still would have gotten ahead of them. So I'm officially, for those of you that are concerned for my well-being, I'm officially at peace with the Vikings not getting Justin Fields. And with that said, that was I was kind of surprised with the trade down with Christian Darisaw on the board at 14. I think it was pure luck that he was still there at 23, but the Vikings got him, so that was fantastic. I can't really complain at all about the way Rick Spielman did the draft. I was fully expecting some trade backs, or maybe even a trade up into the second round. And he held on to his gunpowder and fired him. And I think he hit some targets, which we'll talk about as we go on. But first, we're going to roll back to the first round. Vikings are sitting on the clock at 14. Christian Darisaw is there. I think during the draft show, we all assumed that the Vikings were just going to run up to the podium and grab Christian Darisaw. And then we hear they traded with the Jets. They traded pick 14 to the Jets for pick 23, pick 14 and pick 143, one of their fourth round picks, to the Jets for pick 23, 66, and 86, which were 2 third round picks. When we first heard the trade, Chris, what was your initial impression of that trade before any of the picks were made in retrospect, just at the time in the moment?
I thought that, based on the values of the guys, the way that they had been ranked by a lot of the experts and whatever, I thought the trade down was going to give Zimmer and Spielman kind of the, I don't want to say if cover is the right word or whatever, but I thought they were targeting defensive end at, their new spot rather than offensive tackle, because a lot of the edge guys were kind of graded in that low teens, upper 20s sort of area, and that was right where they traded into at 23. So I thought they were going to try to worry about offensive tackle later, and then go with the edge guys, whether it was Pay or Phillips or whatever in the first round. But yeah, it wound up not happening that way. They wound up with Darisaw after all, and that was a hell of a trade by Rick Spielman. Got to be honest. I mean, you trade back 9 spots and pick up 2 extra thirds for a guy that nobody would have complained about you taking at 14 anyway. So right. Yeah, that was a hell of a job. I can't argue with that. Now it almost didn't happen, like you said, but that's something we can get into a little bit later if we want to.
Drew, what were your thoughts on the trade initially there in the moment as it happened?
Well, I'm really glad to see that the Tostitos bag made it another week. It's only been there 6 years.
I told y'all at this point it's decorative. I don't even know what the expiration. I don't even know what the expiration date on that bag of Tostitos.
We should eat those, man. We'll probably Zoom for a while.
Yeah, we'll probably die.
I wanted a trade back to start the draft. We'd already been over that in our past episodes, Ted. I wanted to trade back because I think we had to pick up extra picks. I was kind of annoyed we didn't get that second rounder that the Jets had. That was my first impression. You always look at what you're going to get first when somebody trades up. But with Darisaw on the board and trading out, I wanted to trade back, but Darisaw was the player I wanted. So I was like in between going, oh, shit. I think the Vikings had a secondary plan. That might have been what Chris just said, that I don't think they thought Darisaw was going to be there at 23. First off, I was hoping they traded back between 20 and 25. So they were right in where I wanted them to be, because I think they got some good capital back being at 23. I think they didn't expect Darisaw to be there. They were probably thinking, I'm spitballing here, Vera Tucker would be there at 23, or we'll take the defensive end. Because the way this whole draft has been leading up to now, the defensive ends have been falling, guys. They've been falling from 8, and then the first one was taken at 14, the next one was taken at 18. Then last week, I didn't see the first guy falling off the board to like 20, which ended up being, that's what happened. But I was happy with the trade back to pick up the extra picks. I wanted a second rounder, but I wasn't going to worry about it. But when Darisaw was there at 23, that's like a big win-win. Huge.
I think it was too. I agree with Chris. I think they were willing to sacrifice Darisaw, trade down, get those extra picks, pick up a tackle in the third round. And I think they were fully expecting to draft either Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, possibly even Greg Russo. If those guys had been off the board and Darisaw had been off the board, I think it would have been very interesting to see what Rick Spielman would have done. Because I think those were probably his top 3 targets with Phillips, Paye, Darisaw. The Jets took Vera Tucker, I think, at 14,
right
after the trade, right?
Yep.
So that got blown up right away.
Right.
So yeah, it would have been interesting to see what they would have done. Go ahead, Chris.
He might have traded back again.
Yeah. That leads into the story that we saw, or that I saw the other day from Chad Graff over at The Athletic. He said that when the Vikings came up to their pick, there were 4 guys that they were targeting. It was Darisaw, it was Vera Tucker, it was Jalen Phillips, and it was Kwity Paye. And so they made the trade back, and then, like you say, Vera Tucker went, and then Phillips went, and then Paye went. And according to the story from Chad Graff, the Vikings were worried, and so they were trying to move back up again after they traded down, but they couldn't find anyone to trade back up with to get Darisaw. And as it turned out, they didn't have to, but there was a little bit of a horseshoe action going on after that pick was made. If it actually, played out the way that Chad Graff was saying that it did, because they were worried that they were going to somehow miss out on all 4 of those guys, but they wound up, getting the guy that, like we said, they could have taken at 14 and everything would have been fine.
What a value, guys.
Yeah, value. It was a great value pick. And look, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And I think, for as critical as Drew and I have been about Rick Spielman the last couple of years, and Chris, a couple times you've been on with us, you were kind of on the fence as well. He's generally done pretty well in drafts in the early rounds, getting guys. The one frustrating thing we've all complained about is the incessant trading down and trying to accumulate as many late round picks. I'm just glad he stayed and didn't move and get into the second round. Although the reports again were that he was trying, and he just the price was too high and he couldn't find any takers. So overall, though, I think all of us are extremely happy with Christian Darrisaw as the first round pick for the Vikings.
I've complained about Rick Spielman. What episode was that on?
Allegedly. I'd have to go back. It's only been brief flashes. I'd have to go back and categorize exactly what the timestamp was in the particular episode that I remember. But yeah, a little bit. Just once or twice.
Next, you're going to tell me that Drew's been critical of Mike Zimmer, too. I'm not going to buy that either.
No, Mike Zimmer's God. He's the greatest coach ever.
He is above average.
That trade back and getting Darrisaw, me and Rick are going to be on good terms for at least 2 weeks.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Nice.
He bought himself some time.
That guy was the second best pure left tackle in this draft. I did have Vera Tucker rated above him just because of his versatility, where he can play tackle or guard. And I think Vera Tucker and Wyatt Davis are going to be the best guards in this whole draft. But Darrisaw at 23, that guy is awesome.
You had him as a top 10. Well, I mean, none of us thought he would be there at 14, much less 23. Are we all in agreement there? 8.
I had him in number 8 in my top 50. Yeah.
What do you like about his game that had you rank him so high, Drew?
I like the fact that he's solid in all parts of his game. Usually you hear offensive linemen, they either are really good run blockers and then, so-and-so with pass blocking. And then they either suffer one part of their game or another. He's solid all the way across the board from the tape I saw. That guy's fantastic.
Okay.
The only thing I've ever heard about that guy is that he's too nice. He's really quiet. But, quiet people can blow up on you too. I didn't see any flaws in his game. Like I said, besides Sewell, pure left tackle, Darrisaw was he was the best guy out there.
Okay. So successful round 1. The Vikings had no picks in round 2. We now move to round 3, where it turns out they ended up having 4 picks to include the 2 picks they got from the Jets trade. And so when you add this whole trade up with the Jets together, they basically traded Elijah Vera Tucker for Christian Darrisaw, their first pick in the 3rd round, which was Kellen Mond, and another one of their 3rd round picks, guard Wyatt Davis from Ohio State. And their total 3rd round haul in all this was quarterback Kellen Mond from Texas Agricultural and Military or Mechanical, I don't know, Texas A&M.
What the hell does A&M stand for again?
Agricultural and Military School, I believe.
Agriculture.
Yeah, okay. I believe. I'd have to look it up. Chaz Surratt, linebacker of the famed Surratt family that was in the Abraham Lincoln assassination plot. Okay, he wasn't. I have no idea.
But his brother was in the draft.
Wow.
His brother was in the draft.
Wyatt Davis.
Yeah.
He went to the Ohio State University.
Shocker,
and then
throw that in there.
And then Patrick Jones, defensive end. So, Drew, we'll start with you for the 3rd round. What were your overall impression and thoughts of the 3rd round picks that the Vikings got? Mond, Surratt, Davis, and Jones.
I liked every one of those picks.
Did you really?
I liked them in the order they took them. I was kind of worried that they took Surratt, the linebacker position, right where they did. I really wanted Davis right there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this is where we're going to lose out on Wyatt Davis. We took this linebacker and we're going to lose out on my favorite guard in the draft. If not one of my favorite players in the draft, even though he's a Buckeye, Wyatt Davis. That's the guy. Well, you followed the thread. I was yelling about it ever since when round 2 started. I hope nobody takes him.
Yeah.
I think they took care of positions and the players perfectly for that.
What do you like about Surratt?
Oh, man. That guy, the only reason he was number 9 on my board is because he's only played 2 years linebacker at North Carolina. He was quarterback. He was a quarterback who turned into a linebacker. I don't know if you probably already knew that since you're researching these guys, but This guy, all conference in 2009. Let me throw a tasty tidbit out for Chad Surratt, my favorite one.
All right.
We'll start with that. In 2019, Chad Surratt made 115 tackles, 66 solo.
Really?
115 tackles. And I looked up, I did a little bit more research and looked up missed tackles. Because you look up tackles, you want to look up missed tackles. He had 115 tackles in 2019. He had 27 missed tackles.
Really?
Now, I know we don't like to do math on this show, Ted. I don't really like math myself. But 115 and 27 is 140 something.
Yeah.
That's Chad Greenway type area.
That's pretty solid production and signs that he's a pretty solid tackler to begin with.
The only problem with this guy is that he hasn't played there enough.
So that's why you think he dropped? Just inexperience?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I had him at number 9 on my board. I would have had him higher, except he hasn't played that many games, but he's a lot final finish. Last night, I watched the Vatech game in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
He had 17 tackles in that game.
Jeez.
Damn.
Incredible off the edge. But let me tell you what the reason he's got an upper hand on everybody, those 2 years he played quarterback and the quarterback he played in high school, if you watch him play, he is almost in the quarterback's head anticipating what the quarterback's going to do. I think this guy benefited greatly from playing quarterback. He knows what they're going to do in certain positions. And he like intercepted a couple passes and he was right. Like, how the hell did he know he was going to throw it there? I think it's helped him. It helped him in blitz. It helps him. That kind of gets him in trouble, gets him behind on the play now and then by looking in the backfield too much. But I think his quarterback experience is awesome. The guy's a great tackler. He's a hell of a player. And I think over the course of time, he's going to only get better. But that's probably why he fell that far to begin with.
Chris, go ahead. Go ahead, Drew.
Real quick. He had 27 missed tackles in 2019. I did look up 2020 to see if it was a continuing problem. He went from 27 missed tackles down to 11. So he improved greatly on that because that was an area he even knew he had to get better at. But after researching Chaz Surratt yesterday, I'm good with it. And people are saying, well, you can't spend a third rounder on him. That's where I had him.
Well, and talking about his missed tackles this year, the ACC played pretty much a full schedule this year, didn't they?
Yes.
Like 9-10 games?
I believe so.
Okay. So that, down here. I mean, that's a lot more impressive when you consider, conferences like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 only played 6 or 7 games or whatever. Chris, what are your thoughts on the third round?
I think the Vikings, did a heck of a job getting the guys. Once you get into the third round, you're kind of in the best player available while still looking for needs, kind of thing. I like the Mond pick a lot because he's one of those guys that I don't think he's anywhere near done developing yet. And he's still got a lot of room to grow. And if you take a quarterback in the third round, you're not going to rock the boat too much. I mean, because nobody's going to come in and expect him to start right away. And you're probably married to Kirk Cousins for at least 1 or 2 more years. So he's going to get the opportunity to learn and sit back a little bit. It's a hell of a lot more exciting than having Sean Mannion hold the clipboard on Sundays. I will say that because he upgraded that spot as well. Drew talked about Surratt already. Like you said, he's only been playing linebacker for 2 years. He was first team all ACC both years, but he played linebacker. So that's pretty impressive. That's
impressive.
Solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once the guy gets another year under his belt, and like we talked about leading up to the draft and on draft night, Anthony Barr is going to hit free agency after this year now because of his contract restructure. So give the guy a year in the NFL, get him into an NFL strength and conditioning program, and maybe he's Anthony Barr's replacement starting in 2022. The Wyatt Davis pick, I'm sure we're going to get into this more as well. That's probably, even with what they did for Darisaw, this might be the best pick that the Vikings made all weekend, was the Wyatt Davis pick. If that guy would have come out after the 2019 season, he's a first rounder, but Easy. He didn't. So he fell to the third round, and that was just a gift to the Vikings pretty much. And I'm not going to pretend to know a whole lot about Patrick Jones, because I don't, but I was a little surprised he went ahead of Rashad Weaver, his teammate, but he had plenty of production for Pittsburgh. So I don't think I have any issues or any problems with any of the selections that the Vikings made in the third round. They just let the board fall to them, didn't try to get too cute, and filled some significant needs with some pretty solid players.
Did you have something you wanted to add real quick?
Yeah. Damn, Pittsburgh had a hell of a defensive line, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
With Weaver, and then you throw Jones in there on top of it. I wanted to run something by you, by both of you.
Okay.
Because I know I like to pick into these ultimate football minds that you guys got. You guys got good football mind. And I like to soak in knowledge, like absorb it. Do you think the Mon pick buys Spielman and Zimmer a couple more years? Because if you notice, guys get fired. They don't want the new regime doesn't want the old players. So by drafting Mond in the third round, I don't want to read too much into it. Do they have the opening now to tell Wilf, well, we got 3 years. We got to develop this guy. This is our franchise guy. We need to be here to develop him. Does it buy him more time, that draft pick?
Chris, go ahead.
I don't really think it does because, what is this? Is it the 8th year of the Zimmer era we're going into now, 7 or 8 years? You're to the point. We kind of saw it with Denny Green back when he was the coach of the Vikings. It took a little longer with Denny Green, but this is kind of the point in a coaching regime where unless you've had a great deal of success, coaches kind of start getting tuned out by players. That's kind of what happened with Denny Green toward the end and whatnot. And Zimmer hasn't had the success that Denny Green has had. He's had some success, obviously. He's been a solid coach. I mean, I don't think he's been a great coach. He's been a solid coach, but I think the Wilfs are probably getting to the point where, like Ted has said numerous times, this is probably the top end of the Zimmer Cousins era. So unless we have a significant breakout in the next year or two, I don't know if the Mon pick buys them more time. I mean,
okay,
it might. I mean, I'm not sure what the Will family's thought process is, but if I had to lean one way or another, I would say probably not.
Okay.
I'm going to agree with Chris. No, I don't think a third round developmental quarterback that potentially is your future buys Spielman anytime at all.
Okay.
Maybe if they had picked a guy in the first round, possibly. But no, I mean, like, and for those of you that think, first of all, I like the Mon pick, but I saw this interesting tidbit on Twitter by a guy.
Tasty tidbit.
At Forrester 932. Since 2021 quarterbacks have been selected within plus or minus 15 picks of pick 66, where Mon was taken. Two have sustained starting jobs. So let's not just automatically assume Kellen Mond is going to supplant Kirk Cousins right away, because this is nothing against Kellen Mond. It just historically he's a long shot, just based on where he was selected. I think he has the potential to be that guy, sure, but to buy Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer time, no. They invested a lot of money in Kirk Cousins. Rick Spielman invested even more money in Kirk Cousins with that extension, and then fully guaranteeing next year's salary this year. So no, this is it's time to produce results. And I think when you look at the guys they picked in the third round, Surratt, Mond, Patrick Jones, and especially Wyatt Davis, after an entire decade of fiddle farting around with the offensive line, they might have finally got it figured out, because you got Christian Darrisaw as your left tackle, Wyatt Davis either left guard or right guard, depending on what they want to do with Ezra Cleveland. You got Bradbury and O'Neal returning. It is a line that has been invested heavily in top end draft choices. Finally, it is time. It's time for Kirk Cousins to produce. I mean, like, when it really matters. It's time for the offense to produce and produce a game-winning drive when they have to. It's time for the offense to convert a 4th and 1 in Seattle. It is time. It is time for them to win close football games. And I would argue that the talent is now there to do it. And if they don't, Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer are gone, which I think they should be.
You brought up a good point about it. If it was a first rounder, probably buys them another season.
I think so. I think it would.
That's a really, really good point, because you're looking at it through a whole different scope.
Yeah.
I like how the offense, I finally feel like after all these years they've done they've actually addressed it and done something. I mean, we're going to get more into talking about these guys, but that's good points on that. I was just thinking about that today, and I can absorb all that in my head now.
Now speaking of line, let's think about where this line was at 7:00 Central Time on Thursday night. Your starting left tackle was Rashad Hill. Your starting left guard was Mason Cole. Your center was Garrett Bradbury Egg. Your right guard was better than Ezra Cleveland. And your right tackle was Brian Clan O'Neill. Now,
back in the mind of Ted Glover is like no other, baby.
Now,
yeah,
your starting offensive line looks significantly different. You got Christian Darrisaw as your left tackle, Wyatt Davis, Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland, and I've heard talk that Cleveland or Davis either guard position. I don't know yet how that's going to shake out.
What did Davis play at Ohio State? Right guard, left guard?
He played right guard most recently, but he has played both positions.
I don't like.
I hope they put him at right guard. That's where he's comfortable with. And swap Cleveland. I mean, you can make an argument putting Davis at left guard, and that is your least amount of disruption. You could make an argument putting Wyatt Davis over on the right side where he played most recently, and Cleveland's back over on the left side where in college he was a left tackle. Whatever they decide to do, I'm sure Rick Dennison will screw it up and do the wrong thing, but he has options.
That's a pretty solid bet. I'm not even going to lie to you. I think that's what because this is the Vikings. I think that's what we're anticipating, actually.
But on paper,
the line feels so much better, though, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. And now you've got guys like Rashad Hill and Mason Cole are your first line depth guys, and that's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I think it's significantly better than what we've had the last year or two. Just my 2 cents.
Keep Dozier out of there.
For the love of David Dixon, do not put Dakota Dozier on the field.
Did you Bradbury Egg?
Yeah.
No, all right. The line looking good right now. That's a good point.
So yeah. Now I want to ask this one question, and I'm asking it just to get a reaction. I know what the answer is, and I think it's dumb if it becomes this. But do you foresee a quarterback controversy in Minnesota now that the Vikings have drafted Kellen Mond, Drew?
No, not if the Vikings have any idea what they're doing. Oh, well, good.
Chris?
On Vikings Twitter or in real life?
Okay, both. Let's do both.
Vikings Twitter will have Kellen Mond as the starting quarterback by week 3 of the preseason. In the real world, that's not happening because, like I said, yeah, for all we want to bitch about Cousins, he's above average as a quarterback. I think we can agree on that. And a guy who everyone agrees is going to need a year or two to develop is not going to come in and take the starting job for any reason other than Kirk Cousins gets hurt.
Barring injury, Kellen Mond should not see the field until 2023.
He can't.
Absolutely.
If he's out there next year, he's going to get ruined.
Yep.
And I don't mean to quell. Everybody's excited. We're all in a purple cloud about we finally got our future quarterback and everything. But I'm telling you right now, they better be cautious with Kellen Mond, and they better take their time with Kellen Mond. And that guy needs to learn the speed of the game because that's what he's struggling with right now. And it's a lot easier to learn the speed of the game when you're on the sidelines looking at the speed of the game than if you're in there in the tornado of the speed of the game getting your ass whipped. It's a lot easier to learn from the sideline. The Vikings need to not play that guy. And I know people are yelling, fucking Drew, shut up. But you can't. The guy's not ready to play. He has a lot of flaws and needs to be coached up in a lot of areas.
Do you think, and now Drew, you and I talked about this in the shows leading up to the draft. And I was all about getting a quarterback in the first round, but they got one in the third round. But my only concern was if they get a quarterback, now it's up to the Minnesota Vikings staff to develop that quarterback.
Yeah.
Do you have confidence that Clint, son of Gary Kubiak, can successfully develop Kellen Mond into potentially becoming a starting quarterback?
No.
Chris?
I think, no. Let me top that by saying I think they need to bring somebody in to work with them. I really do. I really do.
I agree with Drew, because if Clint Kubiak's primary focus now is going to be as the offensive coordinator, I can't remember off the top of my head who the Vikings quarterbacks coach is right now, but they need to bring someone who's one of these quarterback whisperers or something like that, even if it's just in like a consulting role or something like that. They need to bring somebody else in, because
I agree.
Clint Kubiak needs to focus on being the offensive coordinator, not player development at this point.
Andrew Janako is the Minnesota Vikings quarterback coach, and if I remember correctly, he was one of the co-offensive line coaches and then possibly a tight ends coach.
He's taking the Stefanski route of coaching like every position on the offensive side of the ball, and then like he will work his way into a head coaching job sometime around 2030 at the rate he's going here, I think. So yeah.
So overall, though, we're pretty happy with the first and the third round, since the Vikings didn't have a second round pick. We're
very happy.
Pretty happy with that, with the draft up to this point. Let's move down to the fourth round then. So the guys selected in the fourth round: running back Kene Nwangu. Everybody have tonight. Everybody Wangu tonight. Safety Cameron Bynum, and defensive end Janarius Robinson. I would argue that in this round, the Vikings were looking for kind of depth and roster backfill. And Drew, you and I have talked about this before. The depth on the Vikings is something that has been very concerning for us. And I expected them to take a running back in the third or fourth round, and they did. And they've got a safety.
Sure.
In Cameron Bynum, who can sit for a year under Smith and Rhodes, and then they got another defensive end in Janarius Robinson. Chris, what do you think on these fourth round guys?
I think a lot of it is probably going to have quite a bit to do with special teams as well, particularly the Nwangu pick, because some of the highlights that I saw his calling card in the NFL looks like he's probably going to be more of a kick return guy than maybe a running back, at least at first. That guy's got some speed.
Oh, man.
He can go. And, if I'm Amir Abdullah, I'm nervous, because this guy does everything that Amir Abdullah can do, and he's faster and he's younger and,
cheaper.
I don't think Amir Abdullah is long for this roster anymore after the draft this weekend.
Drew, what?
Wangu. I was a big Chuba Hubbard fan, but can't have everything you want.
Wasn't Chuba available when they first picked in the fourth round? I think he was. I think he was still on the board.
He was available, but I'm not gonna belay. How does it go? Belittle the subject. Belabor. There you go. Because you got to go with whoever they take. I know one thing. I watched tape on. I'm going to call. What are we calling him? Everybody Wang Chung tonight. Let me tell you about Wang Chung. No, this is pretty rare. This combo: 6'1", 210, and he ran a 4.32.
Really?
6'1". What are the people out there saying? What are the people watching the show just saying? Reggie just said, "Holy shit, that's cool."
Wow.
That's really good. 6'1", 210. He runs a 4.32. Sports Illustrated yesterday caught this little tasty tidbit. Said he's the sleeper running back of the entire draft.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah, and from what I gather, his biggest detriment is the fact that they never played him, Ted. They never played the guy. He never got on the field. And I saw an interview with him yesterday saying, listen, I'm going to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to make the best out of every carry I get. If I get 50 carries, I'm going to try to take it to the house 50 times. If I get 150 carries, I'm going to try to score 150 times. All I can do is make the best out of my opportunities. This guy's got a great attitude.
Yeah.
6'1", 4.32. I'm all for this pick. And positionally, we took care of positions in the fourth round. That's what we were going for.
Yep.
So do you think this guy can be running back 3 coming out of training camp then?
I do, because he's a change of pace back. He's going to be good. He's a scamper back. Like Chris said, he's fast. His speed is what kills.
Kind of like Jerick McKinnon. Is that a favorable?
It's a favorable comparison. I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I mean, when you think back to the last time the Vikings had a really exceptional team, 2017, when they went to the NFC Championship, when Dalvin Cook went down in week 4, Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon really picked up the slack and had a very good season. You have got to have guys 2 and 3 deep at key positions, and if this guy can play, I'm all for it. I think it's
absolutely.
great.
You know what, guys? He falls right in the running scheme or the narrative for this draft of the Vikings. A bunch of dynamic guys right on the verge of blowing up. They could do Surratt, this guy, the Wanger, Surratt, Patrick Jones, Twyman. They're all just. And I'm telling you right now, if Wyatt Davis doesn't get hurt in that championship game, he's a freaking top 10 talent. The Vikings, the guys the Vikings all have the home run ability, and that's exciting for a draft.
Good. That's good. And your mantra, Drew, has been for months now, get better. And I think the minutes, at least on paper, it sure looks like the Vikings got better at positions they needed to get better at. All right, let's wrap it up with rounds 5 and 6 real quick. Wide receiver Amir Smith-Marset, tight end Zach Davidson, and then we just mentioned this kid's name, defensive tackle Jalen Twyman, the 6th round pick out of Pitt as well.
A couple of those guys to briefly touch on. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about Amir Smith-Marset, but a guy that I respect the heck out of is Brett Coleman, who used to run the Texans blog over on SB Nation. Now has his own kind of film room on YouTube and whatnot. After the Vikings made the Smith-Marset pick, he tweeted out, and this is what he said word for word: Amir Smith-Marset will be the Vikings wide receiver 3 and get significant snaps by the time we get to October. And if Brett is saying that about Smith-Marset, that's enough to get me excited about that guy, because that's wide receiver 3 is wide open for this team, and if this guy can make an impact straight away, that's a hell of a pick for the early part of the 5th round.
Plus, he's got kick return ability, I believe.
He does. Yeah.
So that's another thing to look at with this kid. I think a lot of these guys, and I don't say this to brag because I'm a fan of Ohio State, but I think a lot of Big Ten players, because of the shortened schedule, got their draft stock hurt because they didn't play a whole lot. They didn't have a lot of film. And other than OSU that had the 2 extra games, you really didn't see. And then there were some teams, Michigan only played 4 games, I think, 4 or 5. They didn't play 6.
They only showed up for 2. So.
Yeah. But I mean, they had cancellations and rescheduling, and it was just a wacky season of the Big Ten. And I think a full season, a guy like Smith-Marset goes maybe a little bit higher, a round earlier. I don't know. That's just me speculating.
That's super accurate. I think that is. Like Chris says, haven't done a lot of research on this guy. There's still 4 or 5 guys I got to really do a deep dive on. Yep. The one thing I like about Marset is I hear he's got this cocky, confident attitude, almost overboard, but not like in a bad way, in a competitive way. I heard there's one game where they kicked off to him and he ran it back to the 11-yard line and he got hit pretty good. And they were like, the guys that hit him were like high-fiving and everything. And he ran up to one of them and said, next time you kick it off, I'm taking that shit to the house. And next kickoff, he ran it back. It's like cocky in a competitive way. I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I really, really like what Chris was just saying. That's really good. That's good knowledge right there. Gets me kind of fired up.
Well, and I thought going into this draft, I honestly, I thought they would address the wide receiver position before they did. I've been on the bandwagon that RW3 is almost a starting position now in this day and age. And although, but again, it goes back to kind of do we draft a quarterback dilemma? The Vikings used the 3 wide receiver sets, I think, less than anybody else in the NFL, something like 30% of the time. So this kind of probably feels like a safer pick.
Right.
If you're going to invest in a guy, then to get a guy in the earlier rounds that you're not going to utilize as much as another team would, for example. So I'm pretty fired up about that. All right. They had 1 pick in the 6th round. Yeah. Defensive tackle Jalen Twyman.
Oh yeah.
Love me some Jalen Twyman.
Absolutely. So Drew, like, I saw the big board that you had for the defensive tackles, and
right.
you were part of, between like I was telling you guys last night, I've got two pre-draft magazines that hit the newsstand usually like late February, early March, or whatever. One of those two pre-draft magazines had Jalen Twyman as the third best defensive tackle in this draft behind Barmore and Nixon, and the other one had scouting like previews of 20 or 25 defensive tackles, and Jalen Twyman wasn't even mentioned once at all. And that there just seemed to be a lot of disparity between where some of these draft guys had Jalen Twyman ranked. So, what was it that made you so much higher on him than a lot of other folks did, and why do you think there was as much disparity by a look between a lot of these people as there was?
Can I take you higher? Fly me over. That's okay. I am a huge Twyman fan. You can ask Ruby. When I seen the ticker on there, jumped up, head hit the ceiling, got a little bit of a cut on my head. I was stoked. We highlighted him on our defensive tackle board, that episode, Ted, we did for the defensive tackles. We talked about how much he idolized Aaron Donald and how much of a work ethic this guy has and how much push he has and how much determination he has. He's super athletic. He's a freak. He's a let me read these quick stats to you and you'll know. The guy's only played 21 games, and that's part of the reason people were either second rounder, third rounder, or having him back in the sixth round because he doesn't have a lot of experience at defensive tackle. That and his size. They're worried about his size. 21 games, 57 tackles, 13 and a half tackles for loss, and 11 sacks.
That's nuts. That is nuts production.
That's pretty good.
Defensive tackle, 11 sacks in 21 games breaks the record of Aaron Donald, who had 10 and a half.
Wow.
Dang.
He opted out of 2020, but here was the thing about Twyman. He came out of high school and he came to Pittsburgh. His big number one thing was his run stuffing. He was a great run stuffing defensive tackle, but he couldn't get around the guards in the center enough to get gap penetration, to get tackles for loss and quarterback sacks, and it bugged him. So he got in this weight training program and he lost 30 pounds. All of a sudden the quickness came. Time is a flat circle. Came all the way around. But all of a sudden he's shooting the gaps. If he beats you with his first step, it's over. He's too quick for anybody to block him. That's one of the aspects about this guy. But the losing the 30 pounds, his run defense scaled way back. So to increase one part of his game, he lost the run defense prowess. So he's got to figure out how to balance that back. And I think this is a huge toy for Andre Patterson to work with. This guy is going to be an awesome player if he blossoms the way. The guy is super powerful, super athletic, super fast. And like I said, gap penetration is what it's all about for a defensive. That's what we don't have here. We don't have any of that. We didn't have any last year. It killed us last year. Backs were killing us. We couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback. We need a guy like this. And it is an absolute steal of the draft for the Vikings besides Wyatt Davis. Getting Twyman in the 6th. Come on, man.
So how are you feeling about the depth overall now? So we've gone – we'll talk about undrafted free agents in a minute. But now that the draft is done and we've got, the new draft picks, the Vikings seem to have addressed the real critical needs. Chris, what are your thoughts on the overall depth of the roster top to bottom now?
I think the depth has gotten significantly better. Like you said, you outlined what the starting offensive line looked like before the draft started. And now, rather than starting guys like Rashad Hill and Mason Cole, those guys are your backups. Well, Cole is presumably a backup if we assume that Wyatt Davis is your week 1 starter. And hopefully he should be. But yeah, like you said, you drafted a running back to sit behind Cook and Alexander Madison. You got a guy that could potentially come in and play for a wide receiver 3 spots or stuff right away. Linebacker help, safety help. This is a much better, much deeper football team than it was at this time last week. And when you're determining winners and losers in the NFL draft, that's about as good an indication of a winner as you're going to find.
Drew?
Yeah, Chris Gates, man, that guy brings the knowledge. The depth the depth all the way down from all 11 picks just reeks of depth. I mean, the Vikings defensive line was terrible. Come on.
Yes, it was.
It was terrible. And we need to get
bad.
Hunter back, but they got 3 guys on that defensive line. We got Pierce, Tomlinson, not Ladanian, but the other guy.
Dalvin.
And I'm telling you, Twyman is a pure 3 technique. He doesn't play much more than 3 technique, but that's all you really need him to play is if he's really good at that one position.
I meant to ask you that. So he's pretty much just a straight 3 technique guy.
Straight 3 technique in my book. 4-3, 3 technique. You know, the thing about the 2 Pittsburgh players, they don't have a lot of positional versatility. Twyman's a 3 technique. Patrick Jones, standard 4-3 defensive end. He's not going to get in coverage. He's not going to stunt a lot. He's not going to, he's not going to cover anybody out in the flat, but his gift is pass rushing. And that's what we need. Patrick Jones is one of the best pass rushing defensive ends of this draft.
That's good.
So you're trading the versatility of being he's not going to run people down like Chris Dolman. Dolman did everything well. He's more of just a pass rush specialist. But the defensive line got a lot better, and that was our weakest. Wasn't that our weakest group last year, guys?
Oh yeah, by quite a significant measure.
I would agree. Yeah, it was.
They took 3 guys on the defensive line. Let's not forget the kid from Florida State. They took 2 edge guys.
Janarius Robinson
in the middle.
Yeah. So now, do you think Patrick Jones has a chance? The one defensive end or the one guy from Pitt. Do you think he can start week 1?
No, I don't think he'll start week 1, but I do think he'll end up being a force because he is the mini-me of Danielle Hunter.
Wow. Okay.
He is.
Dang.
He is the mini-me.
So, yeah, I think we all agree that the depth got a lot better. On paper, at least, the Vikings look like a much better team now than they did Wednesday before the draft, for sure. And now it's up to the coaching staff to kind of put it all together. All right, before we get out of here, there is a laundry list of undrafted free agents. I'm going to go over the names real quick, and I want you guys to tell me if there's any of these dudes that you think will make the roster. First one, wide receiver Blake, son of Ricky Prohl from East Carolina. Running back A.J. Rose, wide receiver Myron Mitchell, wide receiver Whop Fillier from Indiana.
What?
There it is. Linebacker Tuff Borland from Ohio State. Ziande Johnson from Cal, a defensive end. Defensive end linebacker Christian Ellis from Idaho. Long snapper. At least they signed him as an undrafted free agent and didn't draft one. Turner Bernard from San Diego State, and defensive tackle Jordan Scott from Oregon. Drew, is there anybody on that list that you think is a potential guy that makes the final 53?
I'm going to give that punter a shout. That guy is like a 44-yard average. I don't think any punter is ever solid with their roster. I think a punter is probably the easiest job to steal if you come in. He has 53 games or some ungodly amount where you were punted. I think Tuff Borland will make the team or give it a hell of a run. And I also think the Whop
Fillier from Indiana.
He was number 17 on my top 15. So I really wanted to put him on my top 15. He was right on the outskirts of it. That guy's a hell of a player. Those would be the 3 I'd throw my hat in the ring for.
Chris?
I kind of tend to agree with Drew. I think Borland's going to at least make a good solid run at the roster. The wide receiver depth chart behind Jefferson and Thielen and presumably Smith-Marset is pretty wide open. So those younger guys that you talked about, Fillier and Prohl and those guys. Christian Ellis, son of former Detroit Lions defensive end Luther Ellis, who played.
That's right.
He played there forever. I think he played for the Lions for like 8 or 9 years or something like that.
He did, yeah. He was there a long time.
That's his son. I don't know a lot about him other than the fact that he is Luther Ellis's son, but he might be someone to keep an eye on as well. And yeah, I don't know how many spots are going to be available for undrafted free agents this year, but the Vikings always seem to have 1 or 2 every year, so it's gonna be something worth keeping an eye on.
My one guy, I think, if there's anybody that's going to make the 53, I think it's Whop Fillier from Indiana. I remember him playing some pretty good games at Indiana, And I looked up his stats. He had 1,000 yards receiving in 2019 for the Hoosiers.
Wow.
His yards per catch average really dropped this year, but again, with the goofy start to the Big Ten season and all the COVID stuff, it wasn't as productive. But I was surprised when I looked at him, and I went back and I tried to remember where I saw him, and so I watched some of his highlights, and I'm really surprised he went undrafted. To be quite honest, tough Borland. You know, I'm a big, obviously big Ohio State fan. I like Borland. He reminds me a lot of ways of the linebacker from Michigan we had,
Gideon.
Ben Gideon. Yeah, he's not the most. Borland's not the most athletic guy. He's not the fastest guy. If he gets his arms around you, he's going to tackle you.
It's a really good comparison, Ted.
Yeah, with the Chaz Surratt pick, I'm not. We'll see. We'll see how Borland does. Maybe a practice squad. I don't know that he'd make the roster right now. If there's one guy, the kicker Riley Patterson, I think has a legit shot.
Yeah.
Spielman has said they're going to have open competition for kicker and punter this year. So we'll see. So I'm going to bet probably Fillier or the kicker, if not both.
And you talked about Fillier. Have you guys seen what his real name? His real name is not Wop, obviously.
Fillier, Kraken?
No, his real name, or his actual name, is Mr. Elias D'Angelo Fillier.
That's what we're calling him.
His first name, honest to God, is Mister. It's
So
not like a title or a heading
Really?
or anything.
Mister?
His first name is Mister.
What is it? Elias?
Mister. Hold on, me get the names in the right order here.
I just think Wop is better.
Yeah, Mr. Elias D'Angelo Wop Fillier. His nickname is apparently Wop because of his. I saw somewhere online. His nickname is Wop because of his love for Burger King.
Oh,
No
okay.
way. He's on the team. He's going to make the team.
He's
I love Whoppers.
He's
on the team.
he's on the short list of the greatest names in team history if he makes the roster.
Hey guys, I promised Patrick Jones from Pittsburgh that I'd throw this tasty tidbit out for him.
All right.
He wanted me because he wants to be better than Daniil Hunter. Daniil Hunter's last college year, he played 13 games. And he played 80% of the defensive snaps. And he had 1.5 sacks. That was the big thing on Daniil Hunter. Get that, Ted. He wasn't a sack guy. That was the big draw on him.
I still remember going, who is this guy and why did they draft him in the 3rd round?
Well, he had 1.5 sacks in 13 games, playing 80% of the defensive snaps. Patrick Jones at Pittsburgh played in 11 games, 82% of the snaps, and he had 9 sacks.
Wow.
So he wanted me to throw that out there, let you know he's already ahead of schedule when it comes to the Hunter. So I'm fired up on our draft picks, dude. We got a lot of upside with these guys, all of them.
Yeah, we do.
So the bartender says to the cop, "Killer, I could barely Fillier." All right, sorry, that was dumb.
Wow.
That was great.
All right, we've been going on long enough.
You know, we didn't talk about Mond at all, though. I wanted to get your guys. What do you guys really think about that guy? You think he's going to amount to anything? I know the fans out there. Everybody watching the show's going, they didn't talk about Mond enough. So let's finish it with talking about Mond.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't know. I mean, when you look at where he was picked, and the success rate of quarterbacks picked at that point in the draft, and then you look at his completion percentage, which was barely at 60% in college. You hear time and again that the toughest thing to improve upon for a quarterback going from the college to the NFL is his accuracy. I like the kid. I mean, he's got a ton of natural talent. He's, Robert Griffith III just kind of trashed Kirk Cousins when he said Mond is, in an interview, he said where Mond is everything Cousins isn't in terms of athletic ability, running ability, and all that. I don't know. I'm glad. I will say this. I don't know if he's going to be the long-term answer at quarterback, but the Vikings and Rick Spielman are addressing the issue, and they are planning for life after Kirk Cousins, whether it's Kellen Mond or somebody else. And I think that's the most important takeaway here. That and the backup quarterback spot, like you said earlier, Chris, is way better. If Cousins, I hope it doesn't happen, but if he gets hurt and Mond has to come in, I think the Vikings will have at least a realistic chance to win a football game as opposed to with Sean Mannion.
No, absolutely. Sean Mannion playing extended snaps for the Vikings is scary, and we don't need that. But yeah, I mean, but like you said, they're addressing the problem. He may or may not develop into the long-term answer. He's got all the potential to develop into the long-term answer. But like we said earlier, the Vikings need to bring in somebody, some kind of quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, whoever it might be, and get somebody to help develop this kid because, I don't know if Andrew Janako can do it. I don't know if, Clint Kubiak's got to run the offense as the offensive coordinator. So they need to have a guy that can focus their energies and their attention on developing this kid so that, if Cousins does leave after a couple of years from now, he's actually got a chance to step in and be the quarterback that we're all hoping he turns into, quite frankly, because, this team hasn't had an actual long-term answer quarterback since Dante Culpepper got hurt. And so, yeah, we need, no, we don't need, damn it, we deserve a long-term answer.
You're right.
That's
You're
better.
right.
That's better.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, what are your thoughts on Mond?
My thoughts on Mond is I think they absolutely need to bring somebody else in to work on it. If you're going to bring in a damn kicking coach, you could bring in another quarterback guru for Kellen Mond, the future of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. That's ridiculous. Kellen Mond is super, super experienced. Did you know, tasty tidbit just for you guys, no quarterback in SEC history made more football plays in history than Kellen Mond.
Really?
1,796. Since 1956, he's played more plays than anybody. He's sixth all-time in total yards. The guy's mobile. He ran for 300 yards last year, 4 touchdowns. He knows how to get out of trouble. He's a ton of experience, 47 games, but my concern is after 47 games, shouldn't he be a lot better after 47 games?
Yeah.
But then you consider there's guys who played with him. He didn't have the stars that Alabama had, but he still had to play against Alabama. He played against the top competition. He is willing to learn. And I think one of the guys he can learn from, besides bringing in a coach, is Kirk Cousins. One of Mond's weakest parts of his game is play action. He doesn't know how to do it. And Kirk Cousins is probably the best play action quarterback in the league. So hopefully they can work together. I don't think Mond, I ever saw him take a snap from below center, over center.
No, I don't think he did. That was pure RPO.
He's got to learn all that.
Shotgun, yeah.
He's got a lot to learn, but the guy, one of the things I like about Mond is he doesn't lose any ball speed on his passes. When it leaves his hand, it gets to the receiver with the same speed. None of that loopy ass Keenum Teddy bullshit. None of that loopy ass. None of that.
Okay.
He has great ball speed. Receivers, I never saw a receiver in all the tape I watched had to slow down for one of his passes, ever. He can make plays on the run. He can make plays out of the pocket. And come on, guys, we really need that. We don't have any of that right now.
Right.
So I think he's got a lot of potential. I think they need to be careful with him. A lot of work to do, ton of work to do. But man, that guy can really be. He could be a franchise quarterback. He could, but just needs a lot of work. I'm happy with the pick. At least we got, like Chris said, we got somebody in there.
Yes. Rather
than just doing this Mannion thing is like molasses every year.
Mm-hmm.
Give us something to be happy. Give us something to look forward to with the quarterback position. If it's not going to be Cousins, give us somebody to be excited about. So,
well, I think they accomplished that either way.
I hope he does work out, but he's got a ton of work to do. There's a lot of work to do, guys.
Okay, so I think that'll about wrap it up. Any quick last thoughts, Chris? We'll start with you.
No, I think the Vikings had a really solid 2021 draft, even without all the usual chicanery from Rick Spielman and company moving up and down the board. They filled needs. I know Drew hates hearing this phrase, but the left side of the offensive line should be set for maybe not 10 years, but the left side of the offensive line should be set for a long time now, thanks to Wyatt Davis and Christian Darrisaw. And they got depth at other places too, so it's really hard to argue with anything that the Vikings did in the draft, I think.
Drew?
I had 2 things to say. One of them, who the hell is Mel Kiper? I heard he was kind of about the Surratt pick. You know what, Kiper? Whatever, dude. Next thing I want to say is everybody have fun tonight. Ted, you finish it.
everybody. Wangu tonight.
Nice.
Great
all right,
seeing you guys. Great doing the show with you guys. I love the knowledge you give me, man. You make me smarter.
I'll say this. I would argue, at least on paper right now, with the picks the Vikings made at the positions they drafted these players in, the depth on this roster is as good as it's been since the end of 2017. I think when you put that and you look at the talent on the offensive line now, there are no more excuses for this football team. It is time for them to start producing and go to the playoffs. And if they don't, there's no more excuses. It's time to get rid of Spielman. It's time to get rid of Zimmer. And it's time to go proverbially in another direction. But this is it. This is about as good a draft, I think, as Rick Spielman has had, at least right now. 5 years from now, it could look way different. But this was a pretty good draft, and they've got good players at depth positions. You got guys that can look to start on day one, both in the first round and maybe even in the later rounds. When you look at the wide receiver from Iowa, Smith Marset, so they've got talent. It's time to play football.
Absolutely.
That wrapped a good bow around that, didn't he?
All right.
Sure did.
Well done, man. Well done.
For those of you that tuned in to watch, thank you. Again, I think we got our technical issues worked out. Thanks to Toonses. She didn't want to say hi tonight, so she's lurking in the background. It's because of her we were able to get this live show done tonight. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to Drew. Thanks to everybody that watched. Thanks to Liz. I appreciate you tuning in on Thursday, and thanks for watching tonight. Again, don't forget Saturday, our greatest hit show, and then we will be back to our regularly scheduled programming the following Saturday. Take care, everybody.